Welcome to the deep dive. We all know that feeling, right? Falling completely, hopelessly in love. It's usually the stuff of poetry.
More cliches.
Exactly. But today, we're taking a different approach. We're diving into your source material to look at this extraordinary state, not as some mystery, but really as a scientific event.
Yeah, our mission here is to unpack the neurobiology of being, crazy about someone. And the core finding, pulling it all together, seems to be that falling in love is this emergent property.
Emergent property.
Yeah, basically it arises from this cocktail of ancient neurochemicals, brain circuits. It's a whole body thing. And crucially, it's found in almost every society's study.
So it's not just cultural, it's deep.
It suggests it's really rooted in human nature. Hardwired, you could say.
Okay, so it's evolutionary hardware. But hold on, before we get into the chemical recipe, why? Why would evolution favor a state that feels so overwhelming, sometimes irrational, even, frankly, distracting?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the why, according to the sources, boils down to stability.
Stability.
Evolutionarily speaking, love seems to act as the glue that keeps families together. It's a powerful commitment device.
For raising kids.
Precisely. Ensuring stable pair bonds, which is just absolutely critical for successfully raising human offspring with their long dependency period.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump right into that immediate chaos then. That initial high-energy phase of romance where, you can't think straight, you can't eat, you barely sleep.
Right.
The sources call this a pharmacological cocktail. So if we're listing the ingredients, what's the first chemical shot? The one giving us that intense rush, that euphoria.
That would definitely be dopamine. It's the main driver for excitement, motivation, reward.
The pleasure chemical.
Exactly. When someone's newly smitten, their brain's reward pathways just flood with dopamine. It's essentially an internal, natural high.
And where in the brain is this actually happening? Can we pinpoint it?
We can. The key spots are the ventral tegmental area, or VTA, that's like the brain's main dopamine factory, and the caudate nucleus, which is a really critical part of that whole reward system. When people in studies look at pictures of their beloved, these areas they light up on the fMRI scans.
So wait, if I'm reading the sources correctly,
Yeah.
you're saying wanting to, hold someone's hand or just see their face.
Yeah.
That urge is processed chemically in a way that's similar to craving a drug. That feels dramatic.
It is dramatic, but neurochemically it seems quite accurate. Researchers explicitly liken the effect of this dopamine surge to the kind of euphoria you see with addictive substances, like cocaine or even alcohol.
Wow.
The brain is basically reinforcing the pursuit of that person, making that relationship goal hyper-prioritized over almost everything else.
Okay, but the physical feeling isn't just pleasure, is it? It's often quite stressful, too. The racing heart, sweaty palms, those stomach butterflies. What's causing that blend of thrilled and terrified?
Yes. That's where norepinephrine and adrenaline come in, your classic fight or flight chemicals. They spike right alongside the dopamine. And that's what causes those undeniable physical signs. The blushing, maybe trembling a bit.
Right. The giveaways.
Exactly. And the norepinephrine specifically ramps up alertness and energy.
Yeah.
That's why new lovers often feel completely wired, like they don't need much sleep.
So the body's stress system is fully activated. But somehow, our brain interprets that physiological stress as exciting, as pleasurable.
Precisely. It's this really remarkable paradoxical state. Your body is stressed, but you're loving it. And speaking of stress, the sources also bring in cortisol, the body's main stress hormone, right into this initial mix.
Okay, so it's not just the quick-acting adrenaline. What do the data show for cortisol levels?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting because it's measurable, objectively. Blood cortisol levels in people who'd recently fallen in love were found to be, get this, more than 40% higher than in control groups who weren't in love.
40%, that's significant.
It is. This measurable state of hyperarousal even has a name, love-induced hypercortisolemia.
So the body's basically treating falling in love like a temporary crisis, like a serious challenge it needs to gear up for.
It seems that way initially.
But if it feels like a crisis, why don't people just back away? Why lean into that stress?
Well, the key is that it seems to be temporary. That high cortisol level, it tends to normalize after about 12 to 24 months into the relationship. And then, interestingly, the partner actually flips roles. They go from being a source of this acute stress to becoming a significant stress buffer. Cortisol levels then often drop back to normal or even lower in stable relationships.
Fascinating. Okay, let's pivot a bit. We've covered the volatile, high-energy chemicals. What about the cognitive side, that obsessive thinking? If the first stage is the chemical high, the second often feels like, well, obsession. What's driving that?
Right, the mental takeover. That appears to be largely the work of serotonin. Or, more accurately, the lack of serotonin.
Lack of it. I thought serotonin was the feel-good chemical.
It helps stabilize mood and regulate thoughts, yes, but in early romantic love, levels actually plummet.
Okay, and this drop. The sources make a very specific and maybe slightly alarming comparison about how this affects our thoughts, right?
They do. This is kind of the aha moment in the research. Low serotonin is a known biological marker for obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD.
Seriously.
Yes, one study found that specific serotonin-linked proteins in new lovers were at levels as low as those found in clinical OCD patients.
Oh, okay.
So that's the likely neurochemical basis for those intrusive, constant, maddeningly preoccupying thoughts about the person you've fallen for. Your brain is almost forcing you into that obsessive focus.
So let me get this straight. Early love is driven by a natural high plus a temporary chemically induced case of OCD-like thinking.
Essentially, yes, that's a fair summary of the initial chemical state.
How does nature then transition that, well, that potent, volatile mix into something stable and lasting? How do we get to the bonding part?
That's where the next set of chemicals comes in, the bonding hormones. Oxytocin and vasopressin. You can think of them as the cement for the bond.
Oxytocin, the love hormone, right?
That's the one. It rises with physical intimacy, skin-to-skin contact, even just warm interactions. It fosters feelings of closeness, comfort, security. And importantly, it helps reduce anxiety.
How does it do that?
It acts directly on the brain's fear center, the amygdala, kind of dampening its response, makes you feel safe with that person.
Okay, and its partner chemical, vasopressin. What's its role?
Vasopressin is strongly linked to social bonding, too, but also things like territoriality and, crucially, the desire for long-term commitment. It might also fuel some of that mate-guarding behavior.
Mate-guarding, like jealousy.
Yeah, that sort of protective, sometimes jealous vigilance against potential rivals, keeping the pair bond secure.
And this combination, oxytocin and vasopressin working together, that's key for monogamy, isn't it?
It seems to be critical. We see really strong evidence for this in animal studies, particularly with prairie voles.
The famously monogamous rodents.
Exactly. They're a standard model for studying mammalian monogamy. And in prairie voles, the simultaneous activation of oxytocin and vasopressin pathways is absolutely essential for forming those lifelong pair bonds. The mechanisms seem to be quite similar in humans.
Okay, before we shift fully to the brain imaging stuff, there was one more chemical finding that seemed really surprising. Something about sex hormones.
Yes. That was a startling discovery. It relates to testosterone.
Okay.
In this early phase of love, testosterone levels actually drop in men and rise in women.
They swap.
Not swap entirely, but the typical biological difference narrows significantly. It's like a temporary neutralization.
Wow. Why would that happen? What's the thinking there?
The interpretation is that this shift might actually promote bonding.
How so?
While lower testosterone in men might reduce aggression or competitiveness, maybe making them more focused on nurturing the pair bond. And slightly higher levels in women might relate to increased assertiveness or libido during that crucial pair-forming stage.
And this also goes back to normal later.
Yes, exactly. Like the cortisol effect, this hormonal shift seems to revert back to baseline levels after about 1 to 2 years, once the relationship is more established.
That's just profound.
Yeah.
The body temporarily fiddles with fundamental hormones just to help secure a relationship. Okay, let's move to the brain itself, structure, function. We've talked chemicals, the addiction aspect. What does neuroscience imaging tell us about the state of being in love?
Well, going back to those dopamine pathways, the VTA and caudate nucleus, their persistent activation really underlines that love isn't just a feeling, it's a goal-oriented motivational state. Meaning the lover's brain is intensely motivated, you could almost say addicted, to the partner. It's driving the person to seek the reward, the presence, the attention of the beloved, prioritizing that relationship goal above almost everything else.
Okay, that covers the drive. But what about the famous love is blind phenomenon? How does neuroscience explain why we suddenly stop noticing, or at least caring about, flaws?
Right. This is the other side of the coin, the deactivation story. It turns out that certain brain regions involved in negative emotions, social judgment, and critical assessment become significantly less active when someone's in love.
Which regions are we talking about?
The amygdala, again, our vigilance and fear center, shows reduced activity, so less alarm bells ringing. And perhaps more importantly, parts of the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, rational thinking part.
Exactly. The areas responsible for critical thinking, planning, and assessing other people are actively downregulated or turned down.
So the circuits that normally pick up on faults, potential risks, red flags, they're literally dampened. We're sort of neurologically impaired in our ability to judge.
That's a blunt way to put it, but yeah, essentially. This seems to be the neural basis for idealization. You unconsciously minimize the negatives and amplify the positives, which probably helps the fragile new bond form without being immediately derailed by skepticism or criticism.
That explains why we don't see the flaws. But the world is full of other attractive people.
Yeah.
How does the brain maintain that laser focus on just one person amidst all the alternatives?
That's another fascinating cognitive bias that kicks in. Love seems to actively decrease your attention to attractive alternatives.
It filters them out.
Almost reflexively. Studies using eye tracking, for example, show that people deeply in love were significantly quicker to look away from photos of attractive strangers compared to single people.
So the mind is actively trying to avoid temptation.
It suggests the brain develops this kind of protective tunnel vision, reflexively avoiding stimuli that could potentially threaten the bond. It helps maintain focus on the chosen partner.
That's quite something. And there was one more detail in the sources, something about synchronization. It sounded almost poetic.
Yes, it's quite beautiful, actually. It's subtle, but over time, couples' bodies and even brain activity can start to fall into sync. Studies have indicated that long-term partners can sometimes synchronize basic biological functions, things like their sleep cycles, even their heart rhythms when they're close together.
Wow.
It suggests this really profound level of physiological attunement, a deep harmonizing of their nervous systems through the bond.
Okay, this brings us to the final big question then. If falling in love is so biochemically intense, hormonally weird, cognitively biased, evolutionarily expensive and stressful, why did nature select for this specific, often irrational state? What's the ultimate evolutionary logic?
Well, the scientific consensus seems to be that romantic love evolved primarily as a commitment device.
A tool to make us stick together.
Exactly, to bind mating partners together, specifically for the long haul of cooperative child rearing.
And that necessity comes back to how vulnerable human babies are, right?
Precisely. Human children have this incredibly long period of dependency compared to other animals. Years and years of needing intensive care, food, protection. It's a huge investment.
Too much for one parent alone, typically.
Generally, yes. It would be incredibly difficult for a single parent to manage successfully in ancestral environments. Romantic love, leading to a stable pair bond, solved this evolutionary problem by motivating two parents to cooperate over that extended time frame.
And the sources mentioned a fascinating idea about how this system might have evolved, something about borrowing from another relationship.
Ah, yes, the piggyback theory. The idea is that romantic love didn't necessarily evolve entirely from scratch. It likely co-opted or repurposed the ancient, powerful mother-infant bonding mechanisms.
Which also rely heavily on oxytocin and vasopressin.
Exactly. Nature essentially took that successful pre-existing attachment formula, already driven by those key hormones, and adapted it to bond adult mates together, reusing a successful blueprint.
So, the long-term evolutionary benefit is crystal clear. That all-consuming passion, even if it feels crazy at the time, serves to concentrate all that mating energy and focus onto one individual.
Right. It reduces potentially wasted energy on constantly searching for new mates, competing, or switching partners. It channels everything into building and maintaining that crucial cooperative unit.
And the benefits extend beyond just raising kids, don't they?
Absolutely. We see clear, long-term payoffs. Stable, intimate relationships are consistently and strongly linked to better physical health, better mental health, and even longer lives. So it's a powerful mechanism for mutual support and overall survival.
So let's try to synthesize this. What we've uncovered is that this incredibly complex, deeply personal experience of falling in love, it's actually scientifically measurable, from the hormonal spikes and drops
to the specific brain regions lighting up or shutting down, the neural addiction, the literal cognitive blindness.
Right, but somehow understanding the mechanics, the nuts and bolts, it doesn't really diminish the wonder of it all, does it?
No, I don't think so at all. If anything, it just highlights how extraordinary our biology really is. And maybe the key takeaway for you listening is this. If you've ever felt completely out of control or just bafflingly obsessed when you were first smitten.
Yeah.
Science basically validates that feeling. It confirms you were, quite literally, temporarily under the powerful influence of a potent neurobiological state. A state intentionally designed by evolution to forge a stable, cooperative bond.
So while we might experience the passion of love as this kind of momentary madness, the folie d'amour, on that deeper evolutionary level, it's actually one of nature's most effective, most rational long-term strategies, binding human hearts and perhaps more surprisingly, human brains in its grip, all to help ensure our species continues.